Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Dutchko. The goal of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast is to give you the story of the ninth grade students here at Emmaus High School and beyond through the people who live it daily, the students and the staff. We will attempt to touch on real issues and stories that ninth grade students face in order to prepare them to know that ninth grade counts. And today we are going to continue on our EHS Career Month series. On this episode, we're going to be talking to Amy Keller, who is the creative director for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, a minor league hockey team that's based in Allentown that plays in the American Hockey League, which is one step below the NHL, the National Hockey League, or the professional teams like the Philadelphia Flyers or the New Jersey Devils or the New York Rangers that you may know. So what Amy does is she coordinates the in-game fan experience for those people that are in attendance at the PPL Center. So she does lots of cool stuff related to the game and some of the graphics you see. So in this episode, she provides us a glimpse into the behind-the-scenes work that goes into the production of a game, discussing the long hours of preparation for the event. She talks about her duties, responsibilities, and how she arrived back in the Lehigh Valley. She's originally a Northampton High School graduate, and she shares probably the coolest thing that I think is that she's in charge of sounding the goal horn after the Phantoms score. So if you're down at the game and the Phantoms score a goal and you hear the horn go off, Amy will probably be the one that hit it. So that's pretty cool to hear. And then she gives us a little bit of advice on how to get started in a career similar to hers, kind of just getting yourself involved and in action there. So lots of great insight from her into how, like, the behind the scenes of a professional sports team. So if you're interested in this, obviously you're listening to this episode. And then we also have another episode with another member of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms organization, Bob Roadtruck, who is the radio announcer. So he gives lots of great insight on how to do that. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this episode here. So if you're looking back for future or previous episodes or want to hear more about the podcast, go to ninthgradeexperience.com. You can subscribe on YouTube as well if you just search ninthgradeexperience.com. Or if you go to the website, you can sign up to subscribe or follow on different podcast apps as well too. So we're going to continue next week as well with our EHS Career Month. We have some cool speakers lined up that we're going to try to talk to, and also getting some student reaction as to what are they doing in the workforce right now, what are their jobs, and how did they get those jobs. So interesting end to Career Month here. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode with Amy Keller. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast. This is a follow-up from one of our podcasts that we aired in the month of February to promote our EHS Phantoms Night. There were a couple of people that worked behind the scenes to make those interviews possible. And at the end of it, I said, hey, we're going to do this career thing in March. So I decided to ask them to come on and kind of talk to you a little bit about what they do as part of a professional sports organization. So one of those people is joining us here today. Her name is Amy Keller. She is listed as the Lehigh Valley Phantoms creative director, and we'll ask her what that job entitles because it's a very open-ended and a lot of creativity there. So Amy, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So all new guests, we do like to ask them about their ninth grade experience and to see if they had any sort of experiences in their ninth grade year that led them to be where they are today. So as we tell all the guests, and especially the adults, you never have to mention the year you were in ninth grade. You are a local product, not necessarily Emmaus, but local. So you probably want to tell people where you went to high school and just a little bit about that ninth grade year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually kind of ironic that you mentioned the ninth grade year, because that was actually the year that I first got involved with video and creative side of things. So the Bethlehem Votech had just started offering a media program. It was very vague and it was just starting up my ninth grade year, but I jumped on board. I love television. I love movies. I wanted to learn how to make those in the creative side of things. So when I learned that program was available, it was something that I hopped on right away. And the first year, there was a lot of building of the program. They were just getting computers in. They were just getting equipment in. The second year, we did a lot more hands-on stuff and less of the theory side of things, which was great. And then my final year in high school, I was really able to shoot, edit, produce, direct, everything that I really needed to learn to get me started. And then when I hopped to college, it was interesting because I actually was more advanced in my knowledge of media and creating it than a lot of students that had already attained a 4-year degree at other schools. So getting that early start was huge for me and key. And I think that with the technology changes and the access to digital cameras on your phones these days and editing software, getting into it as young as possible and just experiencing it is huge.
So you said it was Bethlehem, both Bethlehem Votech school, but your home school was Northampton, correct?
Yes.
So were you all day at Bethlehem Votech, or were you kind of half day in each spot?
I was half and half. Like I said, the technology has changed so much. It wasn't something that was available in schools. I mean, we didn't even really have computers and laptops easily accessible to us. I don't want to, date myself too much, but yeah, it was a unique opportunity, and I'm not sure, what kind of programs you guys have there, but like I said, it's something as easy as using your cell phone, iPad to get involved with. So.
And we talk to students a lot on our podcast about attending like LCTI, which is our technical school in Lehigh County, and just kind of having those opportunities. So it's, you took on and that's not one of those things that people traditionally think about when they go into like a technical school, is like film and media production. So that's kind of neat that they had that program even back when you took it. And then it allowed you to get that like hands-on experience. And I know, having been a journalist way back in the day here before teaching, that when you have that experience and you walk in with that, it's a huge leg up, and your career has kind of allowed you, we'll kind of go through kind of the career arc that you have to kind of explain to students, like, how do you arrive in the job that you're in? And especially in the sports world, it is not as easy as like flipping the camera on and becoming the next great sports sensation. So right now, your current position is the creative director at the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So one of the reason that I found you is because when I went onto the website to look for a media relations person, I didn't see that specifically listed. So I came across creative director, and I thought, well, that would be somebody that I might be able to have some success reaching out to. So for the students or anyone that's watching, can you explain a little bit about what the creative director is and kind of what you're in charge of? Like if they were to go to a game, or if they're on the website or listening to the game online, like what are you in charge of?
Yeah, sure. So we basically have two separate creative departments that work together to create everything that you see here inside the building, outside the building. And those two departments are basically our game presentation, video side, and then our graphics side. So, we create the look each season. We create the branding. If you come to a game, everything you see on any video board is something that we've created. When you see billboards outside of here, TV commercials, all of that stuff, we create in-house with our creative team.
So, you're talking, it seems like you're a lot of the behind the scenes. So was there a time that you wanted to be on camera? Because I think a lot of times students, or even like people that just envision a world of like working in that field, think I have to be on camera. So like, did you realize at an early age that maybe you were focusing behind the camera? And what did you kind of know that you had to do in order to kind of secure some spots in that field?
Yeah, I've never wanted to be in front of a camera. I'm definitely more the behind the scenes person, technical, creative. I think the biggest thing is learning what every position does. It's not a one-man job here. On any game night, we have 12 people just working the video side between cameras, replays, graphics, things like that. Being able to learn what each area and department does really kind of helps you succeed overall in any position, really.
And that does that include like things like when their Phantoms are at home, they're on Service Electric, and I would assume that's totally separate than what you're doing, or is that kind of connected in some way?
Yeah, so it's separate, but we overlap in some areas. We we take some of their camera feeds because we only have, just budget wise, the cameras that we use for television are way more expensive. It's a whole person's salary in one shot. So we take some of their feeds and, they do a lot of advertising for us. So we'll create the graphics and then they'll use those graphics to promote different events for us. So while we are completely separate, there is some overlap there.
So it's let's just I don't know off the top of my head when the next game is, but let's just assume it's a Saturday night game at 7:05. What does your day look like from the time I guess you wake up to the end of the game? Like when are you arriving at the arena? Like are you like if it's a game like on a Saturday, have you been planning since Wednesday, Thursday, the beginning of the season? So like what does an average day in your career look like?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So it's the time frame is different if it's a week game or a weekend game. If it's a game on a Friday, I'll be here 9:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. If it's a Saturday, I'll try to come in a little later. So I'll come in at like 1 or 2 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. And then I'm here till about 11. So it's one thing that people don't consider when they think about wanting to get into sports is, sports are usually on the weekends. They're usually at night. So, you're working those long hours through the whole season.
And that is, I was gonna say that is the reason why I am sitting here talking to you today from the teacher chair. That was one of the things I did sports writing and sports journalism, and when I made the choice to get out of it, the decision was, sports happen on nights and weekends, and when you're in college and you're on your own and you're doing all that stuff, that's not what you think about, and then you get hit with the real world, and then it's like, ooh, I wish I probably should have thought about that as I'm sitting here at Friday night at 10 o'clock driving back from the high school football game and writing about that. So it's a good point to raise. So what exactly are you, so you say you arrive, let's just say on a weekday game day, you arrive at 9 a.m. Like, what are you doing to prepare for the game that night? I'm sure you're in meetings and making sure things are going to run smoothly and graphics, but like, what is it like that day? Are you like just constantly moving around? Like, what does it look like?
Yes, it varies. So it kind of depends on where we are in the season. Cause like, for instance, this Saturday, we have a Saturday game followed by a Sunday game. So we're preparing for 2 games. So it's kind of getting everything together for both of those games. Some of the elements we have from the start of the season, like our corporate partners, we have certain sponsorship elements that are sold for every game. So I'm also in charge of the game script and making sure that that's ready for our game presentation crew. So that stuff will get plugged in early in the season, and then we'll kind of fill the holes with what we have going on in sales, marketing, and things like that. So we just had Valentine's Day last weekend. So we had Valentine's Day cards that we threw out on social media. We had Melvin, our mascot, deliver flowers to people in game. That happened both in game and on social. So just kind of getting a lot of that stuff organized, scheduled, and wrapped up, because not everything can be done ahead of time. We don't always know who's going to be at a game, and things change last minute. So,
and a non-game day, is it more of a traditional, like, I'll say 9 to 5, even though that might not be the traditional times, but is a non-game day for you look like a little bit more traditional of a work schedule?
Normally it's a 9 to 5. It'll change getting into the season. We'll do some longer nights just to get elements done. We don't get the players until a week before opening night. So there's headshots that we need to take. We need to put those into graphics. We need to put those into videos. So a lot of that stuff gets done at the very last minute getting into a season. So that stuff, we'll end up being here a bit later at night and working some weekends and things at home.
Yes, that's, when you go to like a professional game like that, it looks so smooth and kind of, pretty effortless on the part of like all the work that goes into it. But like all those behind the scenes things, like people don't think about, like, even the coordination of, when certain sponsors are mentioned during the game, or like, it's the middle of the second period and that's when we do the puck toss or whatever the stuff is, or, the different things that they would do. So there's a lot going on like in your position. So weird question, but do you ever get to watch any of the game?
Uh, Sometimes, a lot of times it's kind of tough. I also on a game night, I'll be the one hitting the goal horn. So if there's a little bit of a delay in that, that's usually because I was doing something else to prepare for, a TV timeout or, an intermission, and I didn't see what happened. But yeah, a lot of times I don't get to watch a lot of the game.
Okay, so I can't leave without asking. So you are the person in the arena that when they score a goal, when the Phantoms score a goal, you get to do the horn.
Yeah,
How
nine
much
times out of 10 I'm doing that.
how much first of all, that's really cool, and second, like, how much responsibility is that? Like, there have been, like, I'm thinking of like the Sixers as an example, when they shot the confetti off too early or that kind of stuff. Have you ever had a moment where, and hockey can kind of be a little bit dicey with on the goal line, and then they do reviews and other stuff, so like, have you had a moment where you may have hit the horn accidentally, or it wasn't a goal?
Oh yeah. Yes, I've actually accidentally hit a goal for the other team during playoffs. There was a new person working next to me, and I was doing something with the script, and the other team scored, and they went goal, and I thought it was us. So I hit the horn without looking, and then I looked up, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not the right end. And then I stopped. So yeah, that was embarrassing, because I play hockey too, and then also being in charge of that and hitting for the other team was it was a little brutal. So I still get harassed.
So your professional career in TV broadcasting has been primarily in hockey. Before you were at the Phantoms, you were working kind of in a similar-ish position with the Florida Panthers of the NHL, which is kind of cool. So it's interesting. A lot of times, like earlier in this season of the podcast, I had on a buddy that I went to college with, who at the time was an announcer, the radio guy for the Worcester Woo Sox, who actually just got promoted to the Milwaukee Brewers radio broadcast. So a lot of times you think, like, start in the minor leagues and work up to the professionals. And your story is a little bit different. You were able to, through like freelancing and other things for quite a while, you made it to the Florida Panthers, professional NHL hockey team in Florida, and then you moved back closer to home when the Phantoms came to town. So like, what was that transition like, going from like a professional organization, like an NHL organization, to an AHL organization? Even though the Phantoms have been doing really well here with attendance, and the arena's awesome, and the people that run it are really great people too. Like, how has that transition been from like an NHL to the AHL?
Sure. Yeah, like you said, the biggest reason why I came to the Phantoms is because I'm from this area. A lot of my family is here. When you move away, it's exciting, and it's great to get to new places and be able to experience new cultures and different people. But there is something about family that drew me back to this area, and I wanted to be able to show them what I do here for them. So I would say the biggest difference is just access, and of course budgeting. The bigger teams get a lot more funding because they're televised nationally. And then a lot of sports, they have a lot more of that because of being televised nationally. And then they also get their players 3-4 weeks in advance, where we only get them 1 week. So there's a lot more access to a lot of different things that kind of help you to be able to produce a different show. There's also less sponsorship elements that go into it, because they have funding from all these other areas. They don't have to sell as much sponsorship time. So when you go to, if you go to Madison Square Gardens and see a Rangers game, you might see one sponsor element on the video boards in the entire game. But when you come here, it's pretty consistent. And that's because that's kind of how we raise money to, both pay for employees, but also pay for building improvements, and then also for our players, to get better players in here and hopefully one day, win a cup.
And it's, it's really interesting, like, because a lot of times when people think about getting into the sports and entertainment field, they don't think about all that behind the scenes stuff as well. To make the whole thing go, like obviously the players on the ice are one of the keys, but you have to be able to sell all those different things and be a part of those kind of groups and organizations to be able to actually be able to put it on. So it's kind of, the behind the scenes stuff is cool for our students to hear. I'm not asking you to throw anyone under the bus here, but is there a comparison between Lehigh Valley hockey fans and Florida Panther hockey fans? I did back in the day, did own a Florida Panthers when they first came in, a Florida Panthers starter jacket. So, they at least sold one jacket at one point, but I can't imagine the market for hockey in Florida being awesome, but I'm sure it's good enough to support the team. But compared to Northeast, corridor, close to the Flyers, I would assume that it's probably just as large up here as it is down there.
Yeah, it's the hockey community down in South Florida is surprisingly pretty big. And you're starting to see that in the NHL now. You're seeing guys coming from South Florida playing in the NHL. And I think the biggest reason for that is because it's a great retirement area and it's a great vacation area. So if you're a Canadian, it might be impossible for you to get tickets to go see an Ottawa Senators game at home, but you can take a vacation, fly to Florida and get tickets to see, your team play the Florida Panthers at an exceptionally lower price than you would if you were up in Canada. So I think that you have just a lot of people that have relocated from the north to the south. And you have a lot of people that in hockey that are retiring to those areas. So it has really helped build the community down there. I think they had some high school teams in the last few years that have won national championships in high school ice hockey, just because the programs down there, are really good. Now, I will say that the Florida Panthers have done a great job rebuilding their team, and you can see that their fans are starting to come back out as they get better and better. But it's a lot easier to sell tickets for a winning team than it is for a non-winning team.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's just that, it's just old school, hockey in Florida, Tampa Bay, Arizona. It just doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue as hotbeds of hockey. But I guess if they've expanded so much, it opens up opportunities for people like you to be able to kind of, do the things that you want to do all over the place. So I guess any new sports team is good for people that want to get into a field like this. So I appreciate the time you've taken. So I have one final question for you here for our students and kind of anyone that's watching, kind of learning about your career. So what advice would you have for somebody in high school? We can go as early as ninth grade, because that's when you kind of got into all your stuff. And you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but if you're a student watching this and you're interested in a career in sports and entertainment and kind of either one of those, what would you suggest that students at this stage do or get themselves involved in?
Yeah, I think this is the age where you want to get involved. This is the age where you want to start experiencing it, because if you wait until you're out of college, it's so much more difficult to try different things and figure different things out, or when you're out of high school even. There's kind of more direct paths that you need to kind of hop onto. But now is a great time to, if you like shooting video, get your camera, get your phone and just practice with your friends, go to games. The schools are great places for sports, to hop in there and take photos, take videos, interview a player after a game, just to see what it feels like, whether you're in front of the camera or behind the camera. There's definitely access to that type of stuff. And don't be afraid to talk to your teachers and your other school representatives. When I was in ninth grade and wanting to do this course, I was shy and more reserved, and I didn't go fight for it. But I had a teacher who knew that I wanted to do this, and she walked with me down to the principal's office and she made it happen for me. And really, I'm on that career path and I'm where I am because that teacher helped me take that step. So don't be afraid to reach out to your teachers and your different school guidance counselors and representatives there.
So great message there at the end, reaching out to the people that can help and always being receptive to the help. So Amy, thanks a lot for joining us. And it's really fun to know now that anytime anyone listening goes to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Phantoms score a goal, that 9 times out of 10, it will be you hitting the horn. So now we know it's, be like, oh, that person was on the podcast, or that we know. So now you have an audience of people that, they're going to be listening for the horn to make sure that it all goes off at the right spot. So thanks a lot for joining us and sharing a little bit about your job and your career with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms.
Absolutely. No problem. Thanks for having me.